area is it's all the space inside a shape. So if we've got a rectangle like that, your area would be all of the space inside there. Now, one way of working out area is you can split it into squares like that, and then you can count them. But that takes a lot of doing. So fortunately, we've got much easier ways of doing this. So now just let me clear that one off. So what we're doing first of all is rectangles. Now, a rectangle has two long sides and two short sides. The long side's always known as the length, and the short side's always known as the width. And to work out the area, all we need to do is multiply the length by the width. Very easy. And also it says here units are metres with a little 2 up there, which means metres squared, centimetres squared, and millimetres squared. So this thing here is called a formula, and it helps you work it out. So if we just write this down, A for area equals length times width. When you're working something out, so if we look at question 1, we know that our length is 4 and our width is 7. So all you're doing is area equals 4 times 7, which is 28. And then you look at units, we've got millimetres, so it's going to be millimetres squared. And that's all there is to it. So it's very simple. So number 1 is 28 millimetres squared. So number 2, we do 5 times 1 is 5. These are metres, so it's going to be metres squared. Then number 3, 8 times 4 is 32. This time it's centimetres squared. 3 times 8 is 24 centimetres squared. 3 times 2 is 6 millimetres squared. And 5 times 6 is 30 metres squared. So it's very straightforward. You're just multiplying the length and the width together. Now we can also do it the other way round when we've been told the area. So we already know what the area is. And we can work out what one of the sides is. So if they tell us the area and the length, we can work out the width. And if they tell us the area and the width, we can work out what the length is. And all you do is you divide, so we want length or width, you just divide the area by the side that they've given you. And that will give you the missing side. So if we have a look at number 7, they tell us the area is 10 metres squared. It doesn't matter about units when you're working out. And we divide it by the side we know, which is 1. So 10 divided by 1 is going to be 10. So that's our answer there. It's going to be 10. Now it's just going to be metres. It's only area that's metres squared. Your width is just a line. Your length is just a line. So they're not square units. And then if we look at number 8, we've got 30 divided by 6 is 5. And that will be 30 centimetres. 77 divided by 7 will be 11 millimetres. So these were working out the width. We just do exactly the same to work out the length. So 21 divided by 7 is 3 millimetres. 45 divided by 9 is 5 metres. And 6 divided by 2 is 3 centimetres. So that's your rectangles. Now we're going to have a look at squares. Now the special thing about square is all 4 of the sides are the same length. So you don't have length and width, you just have length and length. So if you're finding the area, you times, instead of doing length times width, you do length times length, which is just the same as saying times the length by itself. And that has a special name. It's called squaring the number because it's what you do when you find the area of a square. So we're only given one side here, we're just told length, and all we have to do is times it by itself to get the area. So 8 times 8 is 64. Now the units are squared like they were before, so it's centimetres squared. Number 14, 11 times 11, 121 millimetres squared. 6 times 6 is 36 metres squared. 4 times 4 is 16 metres squared. 10 times 10 is 100 centimetres squared, and 5 times 5 is 25 millimetres squared. So that's very simple. Now when we're doing it the other way around, we do something that's called the square root. Now the square root of a number is the number you times by itself to get the number you start with. So if you know all your square numbers, like 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, like that. the square root, that's your little sign for square root. The square root of 1 is 1 because 1 times 1 is 1. The square root of 4 is 2 because 2 times 2 is 4. The square root of 9 is, the square root of 9 is 3 because 3 times 3 is 9. And the square root of 16 is 4 because 4 times 4 is 16. So it's quite simple. So if we have a look here, so they've given us the area. So you're asking yourself, what number do you times by itself to get 49? And that's going to be 7. Now remember, square units for area, but only ordinary units for length. So it's going to be 7 centimetres. Square root of 121 is 11, and that's millimetres. Square root of 4 is 2, and that's metres. Square root of 1 is 1. Remember, 1 times 1 is 1. That's metres. Square root of 81 is 9. And that's centimetres, and the square root of 9 is 3, and that's millimetres. Right, so that's your rectangles and squares. Now we're going to have a look at triangles. Now a triangle, we don't have length and width, we have height and we have base. And the base is just what it sounds like, it's the distance along the bottom of the triangle. The height is always the distance from the base to the highest point on the triangle. It doesn't matter what shape your triangle is, it's always that distance, it's not anything else. Now there's 3 choices for doing this. You can either do, to find the area, you can either do the base times the height and then divide it by 2, or you can divide the base by 2 first and then multiply it by the height, and then you can divide the height by 2 first and multiply it by the base. Now the reason you've got choices, it really depends what kind of numbers you've got here. So let's have a look at our examples here. So this triangle here, you've got a little picture of it so you can see the base is 6 and the height is 3. So if we do base times height, we say 6 times 3 is 18, and then we divide it by 2 and we say 18 divided by 2 equals 9. So that's your answer, and it's millimetres squared, remember, because it's area. Now we could have done half of 6 is 3 and then times it by 3 and we'd get 9. So let's look at the next one. Now we've got 10 and we've got 7. Now you could do 10 times 7 and then divide it by 2. But an easier way would be to divide this by 2 first and say 10 divided by 2 is 5. And let's just say 5 times 7 is 35 millimetres squared. And this time you could do half of either of these. So let's say half of 8 is 4. And 4 times 6 is 24 metres squared. So that's very straightforward. And then one more thing we're doing here is when you know the area of a triangle and you either know the height or the base, you can work out the missing side. And the way you do it is you divide the area by the side that they give you, and then you multiply it by 2. Because remember, we're going backwards this time, so instead of dividing by 2, we're going to multiply by 2. So for number 31 here, we say 20 divided by 4 is 5, and then we double 5, which is 10, and that gives us metres. Now remember, it's just metres because it's the base, it's not the area. And this one, 55 divided by 11 is 5, double it, so we've got 10 again here. Millimetres this time. And then 56 divided by 7 is 8, then you double it, so that's 16, and that's centimetres. You can always check these if you want to. Half of 10 is 5, 5 times 11 is 55. 10 times 4 is 40, half of 40 is 20, so they all work. Now one more thing you've got to do. Now this is known as a compound shape, this L shape. Now you can't just work it out in one go, you have to split it. Now you can either split it like that, or you can split it like that, which is what we're going to do. And you've got 2 rectangles. Now we're going to call them A and B. So you see we've got a rectangle there and a rectangle there. So what you do is work out the area of each rectangle and then you add them together. So I've got a bigger picture there so we can see what we're doing. So here's rectangle A, and you can see the length is 8 and the width is 7. So what we're going to say here is we're going to say 8 times 7 is 56. And then there's rectangle B. So the long side is 4, the short side is 2. So we're going to say 4 times 2 is 8. And then you just add them together. 6 add 8 is 14. 64, and remember that's area, so it's going to be centimetres squared. Right, here's another shape. This is a T shape, so the only way you can split that one is this way, like this, and then we can call that rectangle A and that rectangle B. So there we go. So rectangle A, we can see we've got the long side is 12, the short side is 4. So we're going to say 12 times 4 equals 48. And then the other one, B, we've got 4 and we've got 3. So we're going to say 4 times 3 is 12. Then you add them together and you've got 60. And remember that's centimetres squared. Right, one more thing. Now this is where you've got this kind of shape, this sort of side of a house shape. We do the same thing. We split it in. We split it like this, and A is going to be a triangle and B is going to be a rectangle. So the same thing. We work out the two areas and then add them together. So let's see what we've got here. There we are. Right. So first of all, the triangle. Now we can see we've got the base is 5 and the height is 4. So you can either say 5 times 4 is 20 and then half it, or you can do half of 4 is 2 and then times that by 5, which is 10. So however you get it, let's just do 2 times 5 equals 10. And then the rectangle, there's your long side, 11, short side is 5. So you say 11 times 5 is 55. And then you add them together and you get 65. And that's centimetres squared. Right, I think that's everything you need to know about area for today.